on that day, I'll never forget, packed up my things. I walked out of the very last glass door into the parking structure, and I remembered not turning around. I didn't turn around and look and think what I was leaving behind. I was just looking forward at, okay, think I'm but I know that I'm not. I know that I'm going to get past this, and I know that there's something for me. I just have to take a breath and figure it out. Yeah. And so I cried for 3 days and just sat in my feelings and tried to figure out, okay, now what? Because I needed to make a living. And then I just course corrected. But it was the first real lesson I got in, oh, this is real. Yeah. Now what?
Hey everybody, it's Kenya, and this is the Thank You for Saying No podcast, where we find meaning in life's unexpected turns, where we talk about how rejection can actually be a blessing, and where we learn to be grateful for life's no moments. Before we start, can I ask for a favor? If you like the show, the best way you can support Thank You for Saying No is to subscribe or follow wherever you are currently listening to the podcast. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever, hit that subscribe button or hit that follow button. This is a free way you can support the podcast. And my commitment to you is that we'll find guests that you want, I'll listen to your feedback, and I will make sure the podcast gets better and better. And with that, let's get started. Teri Weinberg, welcome to the Thank You for Saying No podcast.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. This is like a surreal moment for me, and I'm just really excited that we made this happen. So thank you.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
So you guys, Teri is an absolute visionary. She is a producer. She's produced some really exciting shows. We have The Office under your belt, Ugly Betty, The Tudors. You were also the executive vice president of NBC Entertainment. You have your own production company, Yellow Brick Road. You just have a really impressive portfolio. And today we're going to talk about some of your no moments, some of your reframing of failures, and the sort of lessons you learned along the way. And one thing I really want to highlight too for the listeners before we start is your impact on women and people, but women specifically, and how you're really you're just trying to be an example and encourage women to be themselves, to be bold, to be confident, and that's admirable. So thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, that's what happens when you have a little bit more life experience. There's something that kind of hits you over the head and says, oh, there's that wisdom that everybody's been talking about. And there's something really empowering about that. And, at this point in my life, it's been a real focus for me to want to pay that forward. And so it feels really good to be able to talk about my experiences, because whether I progress forward because of a no or a yes that maybe didn't serve me at the time, it made me who I am. Yep. And that's what got me here. So I'm excited to talk to you about that.
Yeah. And I like how you want to pay it forward and share your experience back, because a big thing I've said on the show, my listeners know, is I'm always paying it forward. I'm sitting here today as an attorney, as a podcaster, as just a professional woman because of all the people I talked to before. And so my mission, since I've graduated law school and I'm a productive attorney and have wisdom to share, is to pay that forward too. And I just did a panel actually for the New York bar. It was me and another woman. She was a little bit older than me, but it was interesting how our perspectives that we brought to the panel, because for me, it was all experience. Everything I shared was what I went through. And for her, it was all science and data and research and the panel was resiliency and how to be resilient in the legal profession. And so it was interesting to come from that, the duality of our perspectives, which was just full on experience. I've gone through so much rejection.
It feels like yours was the more emotional approach, and hers was very kind of based in science. Yeah. If that makes sense.
And it was almost a testament to and bringing it back to you and how you show up, because I've heard you speak a few times now. You show up so authentically, and there's not that everything she shared wasn't great, because it was I was taking notes too, but it's a different sort of presentation when you show up authentically, because it's vulnerable. And that's something
but it's
I
all we
admire.
have.
It is all we have.
You know, that's the way we should show up. I think we are caught up in that facade of, I want to be a certain way so people accept me.
Yep.
I want to behave a certain way when I walk into the room so people think I'm smart. I want to make sure that I walk the company line so that they feel my value. And it took me a long time to realize that I have something to offer. This is me. And in order for me to feel like I'm bringing all of what I have to offer, it's showing up authentically.
Yeah.
And so the only thing we can be is ourselves. That doesn't mean everybody's going to love us, everybody's going to hate us, but it has to start there so that we can work from that place of, you know, organically authentic.
Yeah.
And feel good and proud about that.
I agree 100%. And I love that so much about how you present and what you share is like a key part of it, is showing up authentically. You even said on the panel I met you at, it was for the listeners, for context, it was a panel. I think mostly writers were in the room for this one.
Yes, writers, producers, directors, and people that were in the industry.
Yeah. Mostly. And so someone asked about writing, like if she should just write anything that comes her way so that she can just sort of get the exposure and get the experience. And like, even if it's not really something she likes to do or feels true to her, should she just do it anyways? That was her question. And your response, can you phrase it? I think you know what I'm saying. My
response was, you cannot write towards something that somebody else wants. What people are looking for, and especially when I was a broadcast executive, is you're looking for someone's truth. You're looking for a story that somebody has to tell because it's either based on a personal experience, an observation, something that's kind of been laying in their guts. And so if we keep chasing that other thing, people can never have a sense of really who we are. And so you have to write what you know, you have to write what you love and what you feel passionate about.
Yeah. And what made you realize that? Was it having written things that didn't feel right for you, or?
Well, let's start out by saying I'm writing a book. I have never written a word in my life. I've been a producer. I've given thousands and thousands of notes. I've been a broadcast executive. I've given thousands and thousands more. But I've never put pen to paper.
Nice.
And there was just and it was really when the writer's strike happened. We had just come out of this pandemic, we're back to work, and now we're in the middle of a writer's strike. And I was thinking, what am I going to do for 3, 6, 8 months? We had no idea how long the strike was going to be.
Yeah.
And I had always wanted to share my story, but I've always been too busy helping others tell theirs. And so I thought, this is a really good opportunity for me to just throw some thoughts down for me, you know, and see what that looks like and what it feels like. Yeah. And I realized that I have so much to say and so many experiences that I can share with others and pay forward. Because when I was coming up in the industry, I didn't really have any mentors. And it was a time where women were a lot more competitive. Yeah. And now we're seeing women in C-suites, and we're seeing them running broadcast networks and studios and lawyers and, you know, captains of industry. And I want to be able to open up a conversation to say, oh, here we are at our table, come, sit, you know, and now go create your own. So I feel like it's really important for us as successful in our own rights to bring people to the party.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, real quick, we have some awesome merch and you are going to want to check it out. I've linked it in the show notes. And listen, I pretty much exclusively wear Thank You for Saying No merch because it's literally that fashionable and that comfortable. We have t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, canvas bags. The t-shirts say Thank You for Saying No across the chest. The hoodies say Rejection is Redirection, like this hoodie right here. And there's more to come, so it's very cute. Okay, go check it out. Sometimes people will say things that they want to do, but then you look at their actions and you're like, that's not really what you're doing. But I look at you and I hear what you say and I see what you do, and it's very aligned. And I think to be a good example and to be someone that people want to follow and want to listen to, that's a quality of a good leader. And so you have that. Yeah.
I mean, I think being a good leader is being a partner. You know, leadership is a funny thing. And I firmly believe that a good leader has empathy. A good leader creates community. You know, a good leader makes people feel like they are a part of the conversation, because I think we're all more successful because of that.
Yeah.
And so we could do a whole leadership thing,
Seriously.
girl. Let me tell you. But I think that for me, it's about the example is our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The example is how we show up. You know, when I walked onto my sets, people got excited, you know, whether I was the producer at the time or whether I was the network executive. And I remember being on some sets where they would say, the network's coming today. And everybody would go, oh shit, you know, freeze. But when I was at the network coming to sets, people got excited that I was there because I was there to support them, you know, and I think it's really important to honor people in that way because that's when we do our best work.
Yeah, I completely agree. So you wrote a article recently that I came across, and I think it was called The Sweetness of Failure. And it was very on point for thank you for saying
The sweet success of failure.
The sweet success of failure. Can you kind of describe for the listeners what that like reframing of failure is? Actually,
my business manager, Babette, gets credit because we were talking about life and the responsibilities that we have as executives. And she said, you know, and I said, I'm so, you know, we're getting a lot of no's right now because our industry we're in a tough place right now. And, you know, it's hard on writers. It's hard on people who are just trying to do the work. And she just kind of said, the sweet success of failure. And I said, and you know what? You're right, because that should be our fire. That should be the thing that doesn't make us feel like we're at the end of the road. It's the thing that's saying, oh, maybe we need to go right instead of left. You know, maybe this thing wasn't going to serve me well. Let me think about what this experience was and how can I kind of navigate that? And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to try to do that thing where the person said no, because if you know anything about me, I am here to get the yes. You know, and so it's just kind of, for me, it's fuel. Yeah. You know, and do we have to kind of bob and weave a little bit to make our way back around that no? Or do we just look at it and say, you know what? That doesn't really feel like it serves me the way I thought it would. Yeah. Let's try this route.
And I think a big part of what you're describing is being open to other things, because sometimes, at least in my experience, I can be so fixated on one thing that I miss other opportunities that could, you know, that could have been a great side thing or a pivot or whatever, or it takes me longer to get there. Like the DC, what I was talking about earlier, I was so stuck on getting to DC and being an environmental attorney there. And so it took me a while to even like figure out to apply to other places or back home to California for me.
What was that moment for you though, when you just said, okay, I'm pivoting?
I wasn't getting offers, and my lease was coming up. I was about to take the bar. I was living in Florida, so when my lease was up in the summer, I was like, where am I going to go? Yeah. Like I was maybe like going to move to DC and just figure it out when I got there. But that wasn't super realistic because it's expensive and I had student loans coming in. So I was like, well, maybe I'll move to California. And then I applied to places in all sorts of states. But then you're also limited by the bar that you saw. I was like, oh my God. So the moment for me was just like, I think it was more of like a personal threshold of pain. Like I couldn't handle any more uncertainty. And so I had to make a decision. And so I moved back to California because my family is here. And
and all is well in the world.
And all is well. I started my podcast and I haven't looked back.
Look at you.
Yeah.
So proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's either sometimes when our backs are up against the wall, we have to rush to make a decision, but then also the universe has us, you know, and I believe in the things that are meant for us will be led towards those.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the no. It's, okay, this doesn't feel good. What do I need to get me to this next point? Maybe I have to go sideways to go up.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Whatever it feels good to try to get us to that North Star, that thing that we think we're looking for.
Yeah. And in retrospect, what you're describing is like when you're banging your head against the door and it's not moving or it's not opening, like that's for me when I pivot. Now I can do it a little quicker. Like I don't have to bang my head for as long, but you know, early in my journey, concussions before I could turn.
Yeah. Yes. Write that down. Concussions before I turn. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's also something really that just showed your resilience.
Yeah.
And that you're built for this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really cool thing.
Thank you. On Thank You for Saying No, we can talk about some really heavy topics. Check out the show notes for some extra resources to help you process some of those heavier topics. Can you think of any moments throughout your career where the sweet success of failure sort of mantra played?
So your podcast isn't long enough for that. Yeah, there's a lot. But I would say that, early in my career, I'd just become an agent at ICM.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been there for 5 years, working my way up through assistant agent training program. I became an agent in the TV talent department.
Mm-hmm.
And with the reorganization or whatever was happening with them, they let me go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not prepared for that. This was the first entertainment job I had.
Yeah.
I moved here by myself.
Where'd you move from?
I was born and raised in Cleveland.
Okay.
I moved to Arizona with my family. And then when I graduated from college, I moved from Arizona here by myself, chasing, I don't know, something.
Yeah.
I really didn't know what I was going to do. And so I'd spent my whole entertainment career at this company. And then
How long were you there?
I was there for 5.5 years.
That's a long time.
And on that day, I'll never forget, packed up my things. I walked out of the very last glass door into the parking structure.
Mm.
And I remembered not turning around.
Mm.
I didn't turn around and look and think what I was leaving behind. I was just looking forward at, okay, think I'm fucked, but I know that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm going to get past this, and I know that there's something for me. I just have to take a breath and figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I cried for 3 days and just sat in my feelings and tried to
Mm-hmm.
figure out, okay, now what? Because I needed to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just course corrected. But it was the first real lesson I got in, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
Now what?
Mm-hmm.
And the rest, as we know it, is history. But that was a real moment of real reflection on, do I have the wherewithal? Do I have what it takes to be in a really competitive, really difficult industry?
Yeah. Those moments, if we can unpack that just a little bit,
Yeah.
for the listeners, when you're in those really dark places like that, like step by step, what do you do? Like, what did you do? How did you get out of that emotional place?
I just said, get up
Mm-hmm.
and figure it out. I don't do well in sorrow. I don't
Yeah.
do well in sadness. I don't do well in kind of self-inflicted, wounds.
Mm-hmm.
I knew where I was. I knew what I had to do. I had to make a living. And so what was I going to do to make that happen?
Yeah.
And so I just, after my 3 days of just wallowing
Mhm.
and doing what I felt like I needed to do to get past it,
Yeah.
I got up and I said, okay, now it's time to go to work.
Yeah.
Go to work, and figure it out. And I
Yeah.
did.
So 2 things. 3 days is a really impressive time for wallowing.
Yeah.
I just want to commend you for that. And the second,
I think I gave myself an extra day. It might have been 2.
That's funny. The no's are really what we make them, and what feels like everything falling apart and is the end of a road is really the start of
Yeah.
whatever we want it to be. And that's really the beauty of Thank You for Saying No, is like that power.
And she cute.
She's cute. The power of the no
Yeah.
is what you make of it. And
Yeah.
and that's what I like really emphasize in people's journeys and experiences, is that twist that I think in your article you described it as necessary breakdown before the breakthrough.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And I think, in our life, whether it's we're the one that's saying no,
Mm-hmm.
or we're
Mhm.
having the no come to us, I think it's even harder
Mm-hmm.
for us to say no
Yeah.
than it is to actually receive the no.
Mm-hmm.
Because I received so many no's in my career that I just,
Yeah.
they just went over my shoulder. But to be, especially when I was at NBC, when I first took that job, my new boss said, your job is to say no.
Mm.
And I said, I don't know how to do that. I'm a producer. It's my job to say yes.
Yeah.
And so how was I supposed to shift my thinking and tell people no. And I realized that you can say no, but you can also make that person feel good about that no, because they're going to wake up the next day and say, this didn't work for us, but I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna try again.
Yeah, this is an interesting point because, a lot of it's kind of like trendy right now, like no is a full sentence. And like, sure, it is. Yeah. But like effective communication and like collaborative environments, like you don't want no to be the end of any sentence. Like it's almost like yes and, but like no and.
Yes.
Can you describe how you deliver no's in a way that you're describing?
Respect.
Yeah.
Empathy. Caring about the other person, whether it's in business or it's in life.
Yeah.
As a producer and certainly as a broadcast executive and buyer, when people would come into my office, this was their life's work. Mm-hmm. They're pitching me something that they could be living with for 10 years. And so I had an incredible amount of respect for the time, the energy, the thought, the passion, the love, all of the things that someone would walk into my office with.
Yeah.
And it just starts with respecting another human. Mm-hmm. It's humanity, and at the same time, I think it's okay for us to demand that respect back.
Yeah.
So I think if people really understand you and who you are, when you say no, they know you mean it, but also they know that you're not trying to hurt them. This is establishing your boundaries. This is protecting your this is your self-care. This is your mental health. This is what you need to make yourself feel good and whole, so we can say no and feel good about it. Mm-hmm. Because either A, it's protecting us, B, it's protecting them. And in business, you can say, I so appreciate this. I appreciate your work. I appreciate your passion. Mm-hmm. Thank you for taking the time to share that with me. Although this is not going to be the time we're going to work together, but please come back.
Yeah.
Please keep doing what you're doing because you have an incredible voice. You have a vision, you have a passion, all those things. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of want to make people feel good about what they've committed their life to.
Yeah.
Because we can't always say yes.
Yeah. Were you saying no a lot?
Oh, God.
All the time. Yeah.
I mean, I'm in a no business, right? We're in a 90% failure business and we're in a no business. So I would say over the course of a summer, I probably heard 300 pitches, something crazy like that.
Yeah, that's like a lot because there's only 90
you're
days
hearing
in the summer.
Right? So do some math there.
I'm like trying to.
And you're probably saying yes 20 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a lot of no's in there. Mm-hmm. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Because I tend to I fall in love with people. Mm-hmm. We buy people. I always tell people who are going into meetings, especially young executives, people are buying you. They're creating a family. They're creating a community and a microcosm that you're going to walk into that environment every day and you're going to spend more time with those people than you do with your family.
Yeah.
And so you're creating a relationship at the same time you're bringing in, a value as an employee. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more to it than just, pitching, having an idea. It's who you are and what you're bringing to the table.
You've obviously worked on some really big shows, The Office, Ugly Betty, The Tudors. Mm-hmm. Was there ever a moment when these shows were doubted?
Oh, God. All three were.
Can you tell us about that and how you knew to keep moving forward?
Television's an interesting thing because you do the work because you love it. You say yes to the project because you're passionate about it and you see a vision. You're supporting the vision of the writer. You're supporting the vision of the entire production. Mm-hmm. I'm there as a producer to help realize that vision and also to be a holder of the space that writer, the visionary, feels safe in. And so, especially with The Office, we were adapting a very successful UK show. And there were a lot of people coming at us saying, how can you dare do that? This show is perfect. Mm-hmm. You guys are crazy and you're going to fail. And there are a lot of people that still, unfortunately, root for failure. Mm-hmm. For other, to other creators. Yeah. And we just decided that this was a show that we loved. We were honoring the original series and we just showed up every day as a family and did our best every single day. Mm-hmm. to honor what the original series was, but to also create our own. So you stay in the work, you focus on the work and the authenticity of that work, and you try to just sort of keep the noise out.
Yeah.
There's always a critic. There's always someone. We're in a very subjective industry.
Yeah.
A show you love, I might not love. A show that I love, you might not love. So you're just there to do the most honest work that you can and to show, shine the right light on what you're trying to do and stay within the integrity of where you started.
Yeah. And not letting everybody get in your head, because
That's right.
What you created was received incredibly well. It was very much relatable, and they're like almost have like cult followings, like, what I mean?
Yeah, they do. It's funny. I'm working on a podcast to come for Ugly Betty, and I've been going back and watching the first season, and I haven't watched it we're almost 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm literally welling up because the show is so beautiful, and every detail and every thought. And I met America when she was 20,
mm-hmm.
When she was fresh into television, but she was a force.
Yeah.
And I knew it. And, she would show up every day, 15 hours, 16 hours. And all of our very vast cast came in with that same kind of love that the cast of The Office did.
Mm.
And same with the Tudors. So I always thought the kind of through line of the casts were, we cast people that loved the work and worked their asses off, because that's just
mm-hmm.
the kinds of actors that they were. But we all created individual families.
Yeah.
And so we were showing up to work to families. And, The Office, Ugly Betty, and the Tudors were shooting at the same time.
Oh, shit.
So I was on 3 sets. And so it took a lot of energy for me to go from very North Hollywood to the Paramount area,
mm-hmm.
because we were on the West Side. And then I would get on a plane and fly to Ireland, because that's where we shot the Tudors.
Oh my God.
I know, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. But, it was such a privilege for me to be a part of those shows that it was just a gift.
Yeah.
So you just do what you love, you do what you do your best work, and you hope that, the audience and certainly the network will receive it in what you are hoping, to put out there into the world.
And it kind of goes back to the beginning of our conversation about being authentic. And if you're creating from an authentic place, it's better. It's just better.
For me, if you look at all the things that I've produced, the through line is always, we're talking about the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're in a workplace, whether you are in a period piece, wherever you are in the world, it's about how we behave with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in a closed space here. Imagine if you and I were sitting here for 8 hours every day.
Yeah.
Day after day after day after day. What would we create with that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what the office experience was.
Yeah.
Creating a family, falling in love, falling in hate,
mm-hmm.
Rooting for each other, all of those things. And so to be able to, tell the story of a Latin family and talk about immigration and a boy that's 10 years old,
mm-hmm.
And not feeling comfortable in his skin yet, that was happening in 2005.
Yeah.
And I look at these episodes and I think, how did we know this then? And could we even tell these stories now?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really cool to be able to be in worlds where anybody that tunes in can say, oh, I was her,
mm-hmm.
or I was him, or that's my family, or, oh my God, I would never want to be in that family.
Yeah.
Or, all those things. You want the audience to feel like they are a part
mm-hmm.
of the experience.
Yeah. It's giving watchers and viewers examples of the good and the bad, because not everyone gets that example within their own family, and sometimes people learn that from television.
Yeah, because it's always the thing that we talk about after Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving? How was your family?
Yeah.
And everybody can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
That family dynamic.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But then the one person says something at the table and,
mm-hmm.
we go down the rabbit hole. And so to be able to relate and feel like we're a part of something, especially in a world that's so fractured.
Yeah.
You can go home at night and say, I'm turning on my family. I am going to escape. I am going to get out of the day that I had, and I'm going to laugh, and I'm going to find some joy.
Yeah.
And I love that I can be a part of that.
That's a beautiful thing that you've created.
Thank you.
For sure.
Thank you.
What about the doubts from like self? Did you ever have self-doubts that got in your way?
If I didn't, I wouldn't be human. I think to have doubt is a really human thing. But I also think that the more work that I did, the more I was in an industry, the more I trusted my instincts and trusted my guts. I always say I have my truth, I have my gut, and I have my taste, in this industry. And so you have to trust those things. You have to trust that not everybody's going to agree with you, and so it took me a while to be in my whole skin, to say, this is my opinion. You can take that or leave that, but this is how I feel about this particular note, this particular feeling in my life. And, people will try to make you doubt yourself, but I don't fall for that.
Yeah.
I think it's really important as women that we stay grounded. I always make sure that my feet and my foundation are firmly planted so that whatever winds kind of come at me, I can find my North Star center to say that doesn't feel good for me, and just stay in my power, stay in my joy, stay in the optimism, of my life, because that's more comfortable for me.
Just in the last few years, a big part of my growing as a person has been learning to trust myself and having faith in myself, because that the doubt from others, the doubt that I think others are thinking that they might not really be thinking, the doubt from myself, all those three things really elevated to the top for me. And in the last few years, I've really been trying to manage all three kinds of doubt.
Yeah.
And I'm experiencing just the beginning of what you're describing, that trust in yourself. And especially in my field, I'm a litigation attorney, so it's very adversarial, it's very combative, and opposing counsels will always be trying to get in my head or knock me off my rocker or ruffle a feather. But it's that trust. It's that trusting my tone, trusting my work and what I've created and what I've done, and I know the case and all that stuff and what you're describing, and it feels good when you can finally get to that place. What are you even talking about?
That's right. That's exactly right, because you've done the work, you've prepared for it, and yes, of course, we're going to have spirited conversations in business.
Yeah,
that's just part of business, especially what you do.
Yeah,
but it's in those times where I like to take pause and say, look where I am. I belong here. I did the work. I did the study. I know the case. I'm strong in my convictions. We're sitting in your podcast studio, for God's sake. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, and it's not only you're giving your audience an opportunity to hear us, but it's starting with you. And so I like to stop and remind myself, I'm the one that got me here. Nobody's going to knock me off my footing.
Yeah.
I belong here. I don't believe in imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I don't know what I can't intellectualize that. I believe that everybody has a place.
Yeah.
And it's just how we think about ourselves when we walk into a room for the first time, or when we have, I call them my list of firsts. We're all going to be doing something for the first time.
Yeah.
And we're going to be afraid. We're going to have those feelings of, am I ready for this? Well, of course you are. That's why you're here. And this is what you've asked of for yourself, right? You put yourself here.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why you're ready for it, is because this was your plan.
Yeah.
It
reminds me, I think my personality is generally I always feel like I'm conquering something. I need to feel like I'm conquering something. So when I finished law school, which was a 10-year journey for me, because I took time off and all that stuff, between college and law school, I took time off. once I graduated, immediately I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And so I started my podcast, and now I'm like getting the podcast thing, and it has a great community, and you know, we're in season 3, and now I'm like, okay, what next? Like, I'm always trying to strive to do something new and challenge myself.
It's drive.
Yeah.
Either you have a drive or you don't. You
Yeah.
know, for me, I always say I'm better in motion.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be moving. You know, otherwise I would feel like a beached fish. I mean, I need to be doing something. And I think that that's an incredible virtue. I love that I wake up every morning saying, okay, what next? What am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I conquering?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but also you have to remind yourself to be in the present.
Yeah.
I was for so long while I was doing what I was doing as a producer, I was not in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered somebody had said to me, we won the Emmy for The Office,
Mm-hmm.
and we were at the Shrine Auditorium, and there were, I don't know, thousands of people there. And when we won the Emmy, as I was walking up to the stage and onto the stage and then standing there behind our showrunner who was doing the acceptance speech, I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't remember how I got there, standing there. I had to watch back to the telecast to see what was actually happening. And somebody said, you have to stop and look around you
Mm-hmm.
and take it in and breathe. I mean, you're in shock when shit like that happens to you. But, you know, if you can just steel yourself
Yeah.
and look out and say, wow, we got here. We did this as a family, as a group, because of our commitment to this show and our
Yeah.
passion for it. And so stop for a second and say, okay, what am I doing today? But
Mm-hmm.
I just did all these things yesterday, and I'm
Yeah.
really proud of that.
I like that you said that. I just had that realization literally 4 days ago. I was like, I was hitting a wall. Work has been crazy. Work's crazy in a good way. We're busy.
Mhm.
We're making a difference, but it's very hectic right now. I have great things happening with my podcast. I'm writing outside, like I'm writing scripts and stuff. And so
Mhm.
I was feeling like I couldn't enjoy and appreciate everything because I'm doing everything I've loved and everything
Yeah.
I've worked hard to do. And I'm like, but I need to enjoy it. Like, it's not fun to like work this hard only to be like so tired you can't even think.
Yeah.
So I took 3 days off. I brought no computers. I deleted Instagram off my phone for the most part because I'm always promoting the podcast. I'm always in like thinking mode, marketing, like always. And so I
Mhm.
deleted my phone or Instagram. I didn't bring any computers with me. I didn't bring a journal. I brought a book that I didn't end up touching. And I went on a trip with my dad. And I was just very present in the moment. And I came back recharged, ready to go. And I'm like, I woke up this morning. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for Teri's episode.
Yeah.
I got
because
like,
we have
yeah.
to clear space.
Exactly.
You know, we don't take time to clear space. And we also think that if we rest,
Mm-hmm.
that's not productive.
Yeah. But it
And
is.
we have to remind ourselves how important it is to rest.
Yeah.
Because that's how we can reset. That's how we can recharge. I mean, I go on retreats,
I love that.
you know, and I've been going on retreats. My best sister friend from another mister has a retreat that I started going on. I think I've been on 9.
Is it
Pixie? Asia,
Mm-hmm.
who has Surf, Sweat, Surf.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the whole idea behind it because I learned how to surf.
Mm-hmm.
You sweat yourself to death because you're, you know, doing all kinds of incredible movements. You're doing yoga, you're doing HIIT work, you're doing all these wonderful adventures, but then you're also giving back to the community.
Mm.
So we do beach cleanups, we do all the things that the locals can know that we were there and we cared about their land and we're leaving it better than we found it.
Oh, I love that.
But the first couple of retreats I went on, I worked through them.
Mm.
And I had this guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a second, I'm not at home. Oh, I'm not at the office. Oh, I'm not on the show. I have notes to do.
Yeah.
And so I would get up really early in the morning and work for 2 or 3 hours before I had my retreat day. And it took me a lot of years to say, Teri,
Mm-hmm.
disconnect. You deserve this. You've earned this.
Yeah.
Your body needs it. You know, so when we make space, then we can hold more goodness in our bodies.
Yeah.
So I think it's amazing that you did that.
Yeah. That was the first time I've honestly ever done that in my life. So it felt good to get away.
Do more of it. Do more of it.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. I'm going to take that to heart seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So I like how in this episode, we've covered a lot of like the themes of thank you for saying no. I mean, obviously by plan, I made the outline, but
smarty pants.
It's not a surprise to me. But I like how we talked about like the reframing of failure and the no's. I love the no's that like obviously we get as rejection, but also the no's that come from us. And today was the first time we talked about like a no in this sort of setting where it's not like, it was just the first time we talked about this sort of no where you gave no's all the time and how to deliver a no, which I think is really important. And I love that we touched on that. There's a golden ticket question I ask of every guest. Only one person has answered it wrong. No, I'm just kidding. There's no wrong answer. No, I'm just kidding. But are you grateful for all your no's? That's the golden ticket question.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, listen, I'm grateful for this life. Every day I wake up, I live in gratitude. And part of the life experience is hearing no.
Yeah.
And if I sort of don't frame it like that, I frame it as part of who I am, whether as a child. I mean, I heard no a lot from my parents because we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't travel a lot. We didn't do a lot of things. And, you know, I heard no more than I heard yes. And I thought, I want to understand as I get older how I can turn that no, either turn that no into a yes or have that no feel better.
Yeah.
Because it was no period. For sure. And so for me, it's just about everything I believe in my life is happening for a reason. And I'm being guided. I'm certainly guiding my life, but I also believe that, you know, there's a higher intention for me. You know, my mom passed 10 years ago and I kept saying, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
You know, people ask you a lot of time, what's your legacy? I don't know what my legacy is. It's not, I mean, I love the work that I do, but I wouldn't say being a producer or being a broadcast executive is my legacy. But I started to advocate for Leukemia Lymphoma Society because my mom passed from lymphoma and I didn't know anything about it. And that became my life's work around my career and being able to help people outside of a career that I have. And so I just think that everything in our life happens for a reason, whether we think it hurts us, whether we think that no is, God, but I was supposed to do that. You know, well, maybe you weren't, you know? And so I really believe that no is a gift. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. I love that. Everything you've shared today has been incredible.
Did I win the golden ticket?
You win. You won the golden ticket. Be present in this moment for it. Do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you, what you got going on, anything you want them to see?
Yes, you can find me on social media at my name, Teri Weinberg. You can find me on Substack that I created, which is Her Revolution. And I'm currently seeking publishers for my book. So it's out there in the world, looking for the right partner. And I'm still, you know, developing shows for television and movies and docuseries and docufilms. So I'm busy, but I'd love to connect on social media. It's a great way for us to get to know each other and for people to get to know me better.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. This has been a seriously incredible episode.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. I adore you. Thanks for having me.
On the podcast, we want to connect with the audience and create a community that inspires and grows together. We have a way to do that. Submit your own thank you for saying no moment or story and how it's impacted your life in a great way, and then we'll read it on the podcast. There's a form linked in the description where you can submit. You can respond anonymously, of course, but if you leave your name and your social media, we'll give you a little shout out when we read your submission. And all submissions will be part of a drawing to win some exclusive Thank You for Saying No merch. Follow and subscribe to the Thank You for Saying No podcast, and you'll get every episode as soon as it's released.